And that is why Rocky Road is definitively the best ice cream.
Fine, I'll give you that if you agree that...
If you say that the Toy Story's toys are not alive one more time, I will shove Rex up your...
Do you miss sitting around the table getting into long debates about meaningless nonsense?
Toys do not have souls!
So, are we getting hot wings?
Then you need the Moral Combat Podcast, where we take all of your favorite pop culture arguments and debate them tournament style, except while we argue, it's our audience that determines the winner.
I used to have trouble sleeping. I just couldn't turn off my brain. Now I drift off planning my own moral combat arguments.
I often have strange opinions but can't share them with my family without being disowned. So I call the Moral Combat Hotline. They have to listen. And now I can attend Thanksgiving.
Before I started listening to Mortal Kombat, I had no friends or confidence. Now, it feels like I have 6 new friends, and only one of them is imaginary and speaks in parcel tongue.
Now I don't have to be the bad guy in my marriage. They can tell her how bad her taste in movies are.
Recorded live via Twitch every week, come hang out and get back to discussing the important things. Available on all podcatchers by searching Moral Combat Pod.
Thanks, Moral Kombat!
Follow us at Moral Combat Pod on all social media platforms, or go to our website, www.moralcombatpod.com, to find out if we're right for you. Side effects may include shouting at your listening device, replicating similar arguments with your loved ones, voting on multiple platforms for the same matchup, submissions of your own picks, urges to leave voicemails, desires to guest host, pondering who hurt Greg, and many, many more.
Hello and welcome, Galaxy Brains, to the Film Lover's Guide to the Galaxy. My name is Jared. This is a movie podcast about movies. I am here with my co-hosts, Johnny and Joe.
Hello, everybody.
Joe is not in a tunnel. Today we are going to be discussing Star Wars for probably not the last time on this show. I'm going to guess that this will just be one of many weeks where we just talk about Star Wars a lot. May the 4th was last week. You know, I was pretty disappointed in the lack of Star Wars news. I thought they would have dropped something, at least given us like a picture of Ewan McGregor, like on set, just something like that, Like I felt the day passed, like the new batch or what's that show called? The something
Bad
batch? The Bad Batch. I hear it's not great. I haven't watched it. Since Rise of the Skywalker, it's been pretty I've been pretty Star Wars neutral. I've been kind of like, oh, okay, and except for The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is like really giving me my fandom back of that series. I really feel it gets it, What about you guys? What's your relationship with Star Wars, just kind of as a whole, since going back?
Oh, yeah, so, I enjoy Star Wars a lot, but I come in from it as just a pure entertainment value. There's not a big, I would say, like, Star Wars fandom when it comes to me. I enjoy it. It's one of those things where I can discuss canonically about the movies, but if you start throwing me novels and comics, I'll be like, look, man, this isn't this is something that I go
you never got in on I was about to say extended universe, but it's Legend. Oh, is it the Legends now? Legends series? I think they changed it because when Disney took over,
so they basically just made most of it like stuff that they
non-canon.
can't non-canon. And for people that have invested their time in it, I can see how they would be very bummed out. For me, I completely forgot. So, but yeah. I was talking to Joe kind of off stage, like kind of like the first experiences I had with Star Wars. I will tell you, my first Star Wars movie was Spaceballs. It was not Star Wars. So imagine
that's crazy.
Imagine me as a kid watching Spaceballs for the first time, and I'm all like, okay, this is funny. I don't get what they're riffing. And then 2 months later, my babysitter showed me A New Hope, and I'm like, oh, I get it. This makes a lot of sense. Why didn't anyone show me this movie first before I saw Spaceballs? I would have thought Spaceballs was funnier, but for me, it was a very funny introduction getting into Star Wars, and I just remember having those VHS like THX authentic on those covers, and to me, those are pretty cool to kind of watch as I'm waiting for my mom to come home from work.
Nice. Yeah. I'm a big fan. Like I got Star Wars tattoos. I read a bunch of the books. I am not one of but however, I am not one of those fans who is going to shit on you for what you like. Like I, maybe when I was younger I would have been really defensive, but I feel in the age group we kind of grew up in, like I grew up with the prequels, like kind of like I was 12 when Phantom Menace came out and my dad took us to see it, yada yada, and it was just like, this is good, right? I don't so I've had my heart broken once. I'll probably have it, broken a few more times. But I did read a couple of the books. Like I wasn't a huge EU fan, but I get it. Like Disney wants to buy something, make it their own. They don't want to rely on some Timothy Zahn books written however long ago to make up their, next however many trilogies. What about you, Joe? Tell me something that your relationship with Star Wars and something that you really love that's not a movie.
I think the first time I watched the Star Wars was Episode 1,
Mm-hmm.
and this is coming from a guy who knew nothing about it. I thought that the pod racing bit was really cool. I thought the whole lore was
Oh,
really
okay.
cool.
So when you say Episode 1, you mean Phantom Menace?
Yeah, the Phantom Menace, yeah. And I'm like, I want to see, I'm like 70% sure I watched it in movie theaters. I just don't recall, but I do remember it being really cool. And so when I watched that one, that's when I learned it was like kind of a trilogy, because there's a series in the 70s and all that. Kind of delved into that a little bit. I watched episode 2 and episode 3 following that. Again, really cool. Because I'm honestly, I'm just a big fan of sci-fi in general, so this is kind of right up that alley. And then I think just sort of following that, I don't think I really I was a hardcore fanatic like a lot of people are. Again, I think I just enjoyed them for what they are. More recently, Mandalorian, I think a lot of people enjoyed. I was a big fan. The newer movies that came out, I'm still a big fan of it. Like I Solo was fun to watch. I think it was fine. Rogue One was fun to watch. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it when we rank our movies, but
Yeah.
later. But I really, touching on Solo, I was really disappointed they didn't go farther with that. I liked Solo. I thought it was fine. I think a second go round with it, I think it would have been a lot tighter. It would have been a lot better with one director through the whole thing. You remember that the production of that movie was just drama. It was terrible. And, like, I think for a heist movie, I think it was absolutely fine.
Yeah, again, I enjoyed it for its face value. Like I didn't I didn't critique it for its accuracy necessarily and how it falls in like the storyline or the lore or anything like that. And I think that I don't know how to maybe estimate it, but I'd say that the majority of people, if you look at all the people who watch Star Wars, honestly, the majority are just casual fans. I don't think
You think
like
so?
well, I would say that there's definitely a cult following for sure. And I think this cult following is a lot larger than other whatever. But I just think that since Star Wars became extremely mainstream, which is good or bad for whatever reasons it may be, it got acquired by Disney, and now Disney's promoting and all that, and all that kind of thing. A lot of people who are not necessarily quote unquote fanatics will be really into it. And I think
Totally.
that if you look at just the viewership overall, I'd say that more than 50% are just casual viewers, which is fine. Because you still want the support of having exposure of it's really good. But I think that's just sort of where I fall. I think I'm just one of those guys who are part of that general public, really enjoys it.
Yeah.
I don't really have a lot of bad things to say about it. Just overall very positive vibes.
Yeah, it's definitely, I would say, gotten more mainstream, if that's possible, with the acquisition by Disney. I'm thinking the last Star Wars thing that I like consumed, quote unquote, was I replayed Knights of the Old Republic KOTOR recently. Man, oh god, that game still holds up, guys.
Now that you mention it, in terms of Star Wars games, I don't think I've ever really gotten to a Star Wars game. I played a couple recent I want to say computer, not necessarily like console games, but computer games. There
Mhm.
was like issues with them, and necessarily because of the lore or anything like that. It's just like they have like server issues, or like it's very
Yeah.
unbalanced, and it's more of a gameplay mechanic issue. So it kind of just
Yeah.
turned me off a little bit.
Johnny, did you play Jedi Knight or Jedi Fallen Order? Sorry.
Oh, that's the newest one. I haven't
Yeah, it's the
played
newest
that.
one.
Yeah, I've only played the 2 iterations before, which was what Battlefront or not Battle. Is it
Yeah.
Battlefront, right? And then the second
Yeah,
one, right? So
Battlefront.
yeah, Battlefront itself was a cool concept. It just wasn't really executed very well. I only remember that
For
game a
sure.
lot is because that's one of the first games my wife and I played together online, and
Mhm.
this was before we were dating. She somehow either she
Tracked you
suckered,
down.
yeah, she kind of did, and I was all like, "Oh, let's play online." And she would always beat me. I think there was one where it was like the X Wings. They were like it's like a race, more or less, or something
Mhm.
like that. She always won, and I was like, "God damn it, why am I not good at this game?" But I think the last full Star Wars game I played was what was the one where you play as one of the Darth Knight's apprentice or Darth Vader's apprentice.
Star Wars: The Force Unleashed with Starkiller. Yeah.
That was a really fun
Before,
game. So it actually told a pretty
yeah,
fun story. The gameplay was whatever, but to me, like the actual story itself, when I was playing, there was very Star Wars like, and I actually enjoyed that.
I think so. The last Star Wars game I played was Squadrons. Came out in December. I have a like a full HOTAS machine that and I have a Valve Index that I like got into the cockpit. I was fucking flying a fucking Y wing, guys. It was rad. So that just kind of tells you about my personal time, how I choose to spend it. But no, gosh, the last book I read, I got the audiobook of the first Timothy Zahn one. It was really good. I'm a big audiobook guy, but yeah, I really never got into a lot of the Star Wars expanded universe. Really, just a big old kind of it's there. One summer, I tried to read all the New Jedi Order books, and oh, there were like 19 of them, and that was a lot. But yeah, other than that, I got nothing. Have either of you been to the either Disneyland or World section of Star Wars
Not
Land?
yet. I want
Man,
to, but not
it's
yet.
great. I walked in there and I was like, "Oh shit! Like this is amazing."
The only thing I did for Star Wars was that Star Wars ride that's been around for like 20 years.
Oh, Star Tours, yeah, buddy.
Star Tours, that's it, dude. That being said, though, Star Tours is the shit. Like
It's so good. It's still so
I
good.
think I rode it for the first time when I was like 5, and I rode it again when I was like 15, and rode it again when I was 25. Each
Still holds
time,
up.
awesome,
Yeah.
worth the wait every time.
So before pre Panini pandemic, my girlfriend and I got passes to Disneyland because we live in the Orange County area. And so we were going, and I remember stepping into Star Wars Land and being like, "Whoa!" And then riding that Millennium Falcon ride was so rad. It's if I was a lot younger and I was a kid, I would just be like, "Oh my god!" Like I would not want to leave, and I was an adult and I still didn't want to leave. But I think I remember when Disney acquired the property and it was a big deal. Everyone, oh, they're gonna fucking ruin Star Wars. Oh, Mickey and Star Wars. Oh, here it comes. I really don't think it's been a bad acquisition. I really think it's been an overall positive thing, despite the reaction to the last trilogy. I think they've struck gold with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. They get it. They really get what Star Wars is. And I'm going to keep going back to this concept when I talk about the movies. And Star Wars has like as a property is pretty unique to everybody. I think everybody comes to it from a different angle and a perspective and a feeling, whether that be they came to it later, they grew up with it, they're a prequel fan, they're not a prequel fan. It's really a series that means something unique to everybody. But the way these guys are filming The Mandalorian and showing it and everything like that, they get it. Everybody likes The Mandalorian, and that's such a hard thing, especially for these fans that I'm going to say it are real shitty about things in the series. They're really shitty a lot of the time with the things that come out. But to gain universal approval from those guys, it's really good. It's really crazy to have that.
Doesn't Disney have like a, you know how Marvel sort of did the, oh, this is
Yeah.
our game plan for the next decade or whatever?
So they did, but not to the extent that Marvel had. They have somebody in charge of, kind of like Kevin Feige is of Marvel. I believe Kathleen Kennedy was that person for a while there. I don't know. I keep saying just give the keys to the kingdom to Filoni and Favreau. They get it. I think there was a lot of studio intervention on Solo with Kathleen Kennedy. There's been a lot of things going on about with the whole in regards to the last trilogy that was pretty difficult when they were changing directors. I'm not going to put all the blame on her because ultimately I'm sure there's a lot of people that you could blame in there. So I think it's unfair to solely blame her. I just know that when you have a trilogy not really planned out and it's as big as Star Wars and you keep changing directors for a trilogy and you don't have the story planned out beforehand, I don't know how you think that's a good idea.
I agree with that assessment. I think the biggest thing is that when people was looking, because you hear comparisons about how MCU is built to how Star Wars is built. The biggest problem is that Kevin Feige actually built this thing from the ground up. Keep in mind, like when he did Iron Man, he wasn't really thinking, "Oh, can we make this an expanding universe?" So he started with one movie, kind of made it through. The problem with Star Wars and what Kathleen Kennedy kind of ran into is how do we replicate what George Lucas did? Because it was Lucas's things, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest problem is that they were trying to do the whole original trilogy again with the three directors, but it really, even though it was three different directors, it was still George Lucas's voice that you can tell from one to that. And so with this one, you had directors by committee, and when you have three different people that have three different ideas or there were three different people.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
There were three different people.
Originally, when we say three directors, there were supposed to be three directors, but it ended up being two.
Colin Trevorrow, who is big because of Jurassic World, they dropped him last second and brought back J.J. Abrams simply because they didn't like what Trevorrow as a person, or his last movie, and I forgot what the name of the movie was. It had like the kid from Room with Brie Larson. That movie like tanked. They got like really bad reviews, and then 2 weeks later, it's all like, "Oh, he's not the director of Star Wars anymore."
Yeah, and it's since come out. There was probably some anger over what Rian Johnson did or didn't do in The Last Jedi. You'll hear more about that when we talk about our top 5 each, I'm sure. But yeah, I remember. Gosh, I remember being a kid and not really caring about all this shit. Remember, like it was like I don't know. I mean,
oh yeah, I agree with you. Like as an
fuck?
adult, it's bad because like I read Hollywood Reporter. Twitter kind of blows it up, and the crazy thing is most of these news probably doesn't get leaked out unless it's from a fan's perspective, which is like they crave these type of news. They kind of want to hear it. I never used to hear any of these things unless you're like reading Variety or you're like actively looking for these news, but now it's like all out there and apparent. And with these type of things, it kind of just goes with making movie franchises now,
Yeah, it really bums me out that that a lot of this I'll go again, I'll go into more depth later. It really bums me out that these vocal asshole fans, quote unquote, won and got their way. You see how Marvel put everything out, Disney did with the MCU. And I just look at Star Wars and be like, man, you used to be like a lot of fun. Like I used to get like this sense of like giddy. Like I was like giddy to see it. Like I always told like my girlfriend, or I got to see this first alone before I can, because I'm just so excited, But I like as a kid, I used to not care about like, oh, he didn't have this power. He did, it was like, holy shit, Luke moved that lightsaber with his fucking brain and got shoved into a tauntaun. That's pretty dope. Like it's a real bummer to think about where we're at with the movies. I don't want to include The Mandalorian in it because that's absolutely wonderful and should keep going forever.
The movies itself, that's this is why the MCU comparison, and fans is short for fanatic, right? This is kind of built.
Yeah.
This is why I am hoping and I'm praying that as phase 4 of Marvel is going in this due direction, because we're really introducing new people, that we don't have fandom that is like Star Wars kind of seep through with MCU. You kind of saw that a little bit at the beginning with WandaVision, and then you kind of see it also with Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like there's things that these guys want, and I'm like, look,
it's like they're
if you're complaining about, I enjoy Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I saw your tweet about you retweeted something about pacing in terms of what a TV show is. I actually agree with you. Like, they're just making a longer Marvel movie, but in 6 episodes. So these guys have to kind of figure out how to change and adapt into the format if we're going to do miniseries. That I totally understand. That's actually a valid criticism. But when people are just like, Falcon wouldn't do this, Winter Soldier wouldn't do this,
like
that's when that's when I get crazy about it.
They're imposing their interpretation or imposing what they want to see in a character onto the screen. And that kind of drives me nuts. Like, in general with movies, it's like, well, they'll criticize just something completely crazy in the story. And I'm like, well, that's not the story they wanted to tell. They'll criticize the hero for doing something shitty. And it's like, oh, this, that. Well, that's not the story they were telling. They were telling a story about this. And you'll get that every once in a while. And it's just crazy to me. Like, it's like The Last Jedi. Well, Luke wouldn't do that. Well, fuck you. How do you know? You're whatever. We'll get it. I keep saying we'll get into it.
Do you guys think that miniseries is a viable method of entertainment, sort of? Because I'm talking more of a perspective of the people who are producing it. Because the bottom line is they have to make money off of it. Whether I don't know if necessarily HBO Max or Disney Plus or all that stuff is profitable in that case, but I just don't know how much it costs to make a miniseries versus making a full-fledged film.
That's a great Joe. That's a great question. I have no idea what the cost benefit is, but if it's me as somebody who's just a fan, I would much rather have a miniseries or something like that than a trilogy of
miniseries over 10 weeks. Is still good.
I think over 9 years. I don't.
I think it really just depends on the story that we're telling, and I think this is why, if you look at Feige and what he's doing with MCU, it's actually really smart, right? Like, look at the movies that they're announcing. It's still going to be movies. So they still have things. Now, what they're using is the miniseries to fill in the gaps before movies come in. And that's the smartest thing. And if Star Wars, like I said, maybe the reason why we didn't get a lot of news during May the 4th is because they're retooling about how to proceed forward, what it is that they really want to tell. They all know that we cannot talk about Skywalker anymore. We're done. This is it.
Fuck.
Look, this universe is huge. There's no way in hell it can be this family lineage cannot be the ones that is taking over this damn universe. So to me, I think they're just retooling. This is why I think part of the reason why Mandalorian works is because it really, even though it really isn't part of that legacy, and I think that actually is a breath of fresh air.
The last episode gave it a nice little blip of fan service. Correct. And I thought it was totally appropriate. I thought it was totally, oh, they wouldn't do that. Yeah, fuck you. Yes, they would. That character would do that. I loved it. It's just, it bothers me when people try to impart their own biases onto characters just because of whatever political leanings they have, whatever. Have you guys been consuming anything else recently? Watching, playing, Anything like that we want to catch up on?
Just the Invincible. I finally
Oh
finished
yeah,
it. I finally
how'd,
finished it.
how'd you like that? Nice
I don't
little
know
ending there.
how spoilers work here, but I guess spoilers. I like that. I sort of got into the lore of it,
Mm-hmm.
sort of. So there's only 8 episodes. I think they were renewed for 2 more seasons, which
They are.
makes sense. First episode, huge hook, and 8th episode, sort of like a nice closing to. You watch all of it? You guys both watch all of it, or what?
Not yet, but I know what happens.
Okay, all right, Johnny, you don't care.
I do not.
Okay, so like they do a nice little closing on all that stuff, and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna check out the Wikipedia page or whatever, and the Wikipedia page is like 40 pages long, and the first 8 episodes covers like the first paragraph. So I'm
Mhm.
like, they have so much content. So
Yeah.
I am curious to know because I think it's not very practical to do like 40 seasons of this, which is probably
No.
how much material they have. I'm because they'll have to deviate a little bit away from the series. So very interesting show. I would highly recommend it. I would probably binge it if I were anyone that was curious about this. But I don't really watch a lot of Amazon Prime. I don't really have a lot of things on there that I'm like, oh, I'm really into it. But this was a kind of a nice find. But that's what I've been watching.
Nice. What about you, Johnny? You been watching or?
Yeah, sticking with Amazon Prime, I just watched Tom Clancy's Without Remorse. That's the one with
Nice.
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan.
It's funny. I watched it and I enjoyed it for what it was. Now,
Mhm.
it is a very old school espionage type of thriller. And what I
I have
mean,
a question. I have a
Yeah.
question for you. Is this a? He's not Jack Ryan, right? Correct.
No.
He's
So
not, okay, cool.
So it's funny because I've read a lot of the Tom Clancy books. So Without Remorse is basically about the origin of John Kelly or John Clark at the end. Basically, he is, the second best known person outside of Jack Ryan in this universe. What I mean by typical espionage thriller is the story beats are pretty much you see this guy that is opposing Michael B. Jordan, or think to yourself, he's the bad guy. He turns out not to be the bad guy because someone else is. It's very 80s, 90s in terms of the storytelling
Totally.
beats. So it can get a little bit cheesy at parts. And when you know that Guy Pearce and Jamie Bell are in this movie, you have to know one of them is going to be the bad guy. And I'll let you decide who it actually is. But the movie saves itself because one, Michael B. Jordan does a lot in terms of like his acting chops, and he is a really solid actor. But Steven Salima, who is the director of this, he did Sicario 2. I was not a big fan of Sicario 2 because I did not like the storytelling of what they
Day
did.
of the Soledad.
Yes. But I did like the action and how he did the sequences. And the action in this movie is very well worth watching alone just to see how the set pieces are set up. So I am actually, since Amazon Prime runs the Jack Ryan series, they're going to make a Rainbow Six movie next with Michael B. Jordan.
They fucking better, as a person who grew up on the Rainbow Six games, they better have fucking Ding Chavez in that.
They
that
will,
movie.
and I'm going to be excited to see who they will cast as Chavez
Shaking
in
my
there.
finger right now.
Right, but it lends me to believe that if they decide to keep going on with Jack Ryan as a series, we will probably see both of them together. And I'm kind of excited to see John Krasinski and Michael B. Jordan kind of share the screen in this universe. So
I think that'd be great, but like it's a big wolf for Jack Ryan as.
Oh, you're not a fan of
Listen,
Jack Ryan, man?
I like Jack Ryan.
I liked it. I think John Krasinski is very fine in that show.
Yeah.
But holy shit, like when Jack Ryan comes to mind, it's not fucking Jim from the Office. And I know that's not a very fair criticism.
No,
I know he has done stuff outside.
Fair. I think it's perfectly fair because you know how David Schwimmer has the same complaint about him and Friends, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and what I'm going to say is
great director, by the way.
Yeah, what I'm going to probably say is a lot of people are going to think it's unfair. I think that for these people who are lucky enough to be in a mega series that was this popular, and your only drawback is that now people only see you because of that mega series, you're doing better than 99% of the people I know.
That's a great point, Joe. I will say that his horror movie that he was in, the
The
A
Quiet,
Quiet
Place.
Place.
Quiet Place,
Was good.
I bought it 100%. He was not Jim in that movie.
Well, helps that he's actually married to her too. So I mean,
Yeah, totally.
Totally.
I just can't when he's supposed to be a systems analyst and then or a data analyst and like now he's like you're Jack Ryan, Harrison Ford. We need to do a spy movie episode because that'd be a good one.
Yeah.
There we go.
I buy him as Jack Ryan because from what I remember reading about those books, Jack Ryan wasn't so much as, an action star, but like as a nerdy analyst. And so I'm all like, he kind of fits the bill in both ways. So,
But that's what I loved about the Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford wasn't some like huge, like, I mean, in those movies, like, but fucking Patriot Games and
Clear and Present Danger,
and then Hunt for Red October. Fuck, those movies were great.
What about Sum of All Fears? Did you like
I
Ben
love
Affleck's
I love Some of All Fears.
Get the fuck out of here, Joe.
Dude, I liked it, man. Again. That being said, I'm pretty easy to please, so I don't know if that matters or anything.
It's because Morgan Freeman was in there too, and Morgan Freeman makes up a lot,
right? Jesus.
I mean, but I will say, up until I saw this movie, Liev Schreiber as John Clark is fantastic, right? And now I'm like, okay, there's a second person here that can take that mantle.
I'm really psyched for that. Michael B. Jordan is in more things. I think he just needs roles in literally everything. I'm a huge Michael B. Jordan fan. I can't wait to watch this movie.
I really like his meteoric rise. What I feel like with Michael B. Jordan, he's been really killing it. I think he's hustling a lot. I think he's making all the right moves, and he's definitely on the rise. So I'm a huge fan too.
I really want to watch Friday Night Lights again because he was great in it.
I'm gonna go watch Creed again. I don't know what you're talking about.
Hell yeah, dog.
That's good too. Yeah.
All right, now we are on to our top 5 favorite Star Wars movies. I don't know about you guys, but this is an ever changing list for me. My top 3 constantly are like, oh shit, I don't know. So on any given day, you could ask me and I could have a different number 1, especially my number 1's pick. But I will start off with number 5 for me is the original Star Wars movie, is Star Wars A New Hope. It's the one that got me into the game. I remember sitting there just, oh shit. I remember watching it for the first time. And I don't think when you remember that movie, it's pretty slow in the beginning, Not in the very beginning. You have fucking Darth Vader, you have all that shit. But then there's a good chunk of that movie where it's like, who is this whiny ass kid going to the Tashi station looking for some fucking power converters?
Take these 2 over to the garage, will you? I want them cleaned up before dinner.
But I was going into Tashi Station to pick up some power converters.
But then it's that inertia. It has that ball rolling. I love it so much. I love my 2 favorite scenes in it are, probably the end, of course, where they blow up the Death Star, spoilers. And the other one is when they go into the Mos Eisley Cantina. I just like, that's full George Lucas kind of, that Jim Henson kind of creature factory for me on full display. I love the Muppets. I love all that stuff. And it was just like, holy shit, what am I watching? And then you have Han Solo just being a complete badass. But yeah, A New Hope is my number 5. There's not really much to say that hasn't been said already. So I will pass the baton. Joe, what's your number 5?
I have a pretty weird list. I feel like I'm gonna piss off a lot of.
Can't wait. Those are the best.
My number 5 is Rogue One, just because. Awesome. Now the reason this one made the list more so than the ones that just didn't make the cut is I like the fact with Rogue One it's like a self-contained story. I mean, sort of. It's a prequel, but I think that it does a good job of being a standalone film. Mm-hmm. I think that it's kind of a darker movie because I guess spoilers alert, everyone dies. So I mean, it is what it is, and I think that I like the fact that it's more of a modern movie as well. I think the movies back in the 70s have excellent story writing, excellent all that stuff, but just the CGI wasn't is my only complaint about it, and I guess just kind of having a new fresh coat of paint was a big deal for me as well. So I don't think a lot of people would disagree with the fact that the whole fact that it's a movie that has a defined starting and ending point, which is a big deal for me. And but other than that, it's my number 5. I had quite a few that kind of like was close to my top 5 in terms of number 6. I thought that I don't know. We'll get to that later, but that's my number 5 for Star Wars was Rogue One.
Great choice.
Yep.
I don't think anybody could begrudge you of that. Okay, Johnny, what's your number 5?
So my number 5 is Revenge of the Sith. To me, the prequels weren't that great, and I don't know why he casted Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker. But to me, this is the most comfortable Hayden looked on screen. People will throw out like certain tropes that comes out, like they really didn't use Natalie Portman. She's just there, right? Some of the acting feels a little wooden. But to me, the reason why I vaulted into my top 5 is for 2 things. One, the lightsaber duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan is one of the best ones that I've seen because it does have a lot of weight to it. But 2, Ewan McGregor carried this movie, and it's worth every single minute that he is on screen. Like, I didn't think... I remember, when I rewatched Phantom Menace and thinking to myself, I don't know if having Ewan McGregor is actually a right choice for Obi-Wan. But as time grew on, he just embodies what we believe Obi-Wan to be, right? I
mean, you were wrong.
Yeah, I am not. This is to me like he is.
That's what I meant. You were originally wrong. No,
yes, I was. Yeah, I was originally wrong because I really didn't see it because I was all like, "Man, you're gonna kill Liam Neeson early into this movie," and I'm like, "Okay." But as he grew into it, and then you just see this culmination of Revenge of the Sith. Yes, Darth Vader should have never screamed no at the end. My God. Ewan McGregor really just owns this movie and carries it into my top 5 simply on his performance alone.
Great points. I remember seeing that movie as a senior in high school with my friend Alex, and I didn't have a lot of high hopes for it. I remember just being like, fuck, those last 2. Attack of the Clones is a bad movie. We can say that. There's not many actively bad movies in Star Wars.
It is the worst movie. In Star Wars canon, it is the worst movie.
It's bad, guys. Like, I'm thinking like one of these times we gotta do like a rewatch of these. Like when we can all hang out again, we can do like a commentary or something. Holy shit!
I never really liked the Hayden Christensen, Natalie Portman weird.
Oh man. And like how the age difference.
Clunky. Yeah. Well, it's not.
I murdered all of them, even the children. Whoa. What? Wait, what?
It's weird. It's clunky. It's just not. It's not very well put
clunky,
together.
Clunky's a great word for it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they had good intentions per se. Maybe the execution was done poorly. I don't know.
Yeah. I just know that thinking about that movie, the only good part of that movie is Obi-Wan, 1, looking fantastic with his beard and his long ass hair, and number 2, fighting Jango Fett. That was dope on Camino. So cool. My number 4 is a movie that when I think about it, it has the best space battle of all time in it. Absolutely the best, and that is Return of the Jedi. Holy shit. It's got everything. People poo-poo on it, especially our generation. Oh, the Ewoks. Man, I can overlook the Ewoks. They were fine. Let me tell you about fucking end of that movie. The greatest space battle of all time. They go inside the Death Star. When I was a kid and Lando was going inside the Death Star with the Millennium Falcon, I was sitting there just going, "Oh my, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for." Like, it was so great. And everybody's at the top of their game. Everybody's super high on blow while filming it. No, I'm just kidding. That was more like the first and second one. But anyway, I loved the movie. I loved how it really brought everything together in a nice package. And I just like the visuals were so crazy. The beginning with the Sarlacc pit and Jabba, like as a kid, you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, oh, and then the Rancor. I'm just naming off crazy stuff that happened in the movie, but I think it really brings out my sense of like being a kid again when I watch those movies, especially that one, because I'm like, holy shit, I'm going inside the Death Star, that kind of stuff. It makes me excited for the movies again, and I think that's all we want, when we watch these things, is like to get excited, which is pretty damning when you have a movie like Rise of the Skywalker who made me bored while watching it.
Oh, it's so sad to hear too.
like actively bored. And I think, woof. But conversation for another day. Joe, give me your number 4 movie.
It's gonna be boring. My number 4 is Return of the Jedi as well.
It's so good.
When I was watching episodes 4, 5, and 6, I think I watched them all at once, or at least in a very short span, like less than 2 days or something. Because I was like, when I first heard about it, because again, this is coming from a complete noob, and I watched episode 1, 2, then 3, and I was like, okay. And then I was like, all right, might as well check out 4, 5, and 6 because that's kind of, and then because they're gonna make 9, 10, 11 or whatever. And so I watched it all at once. My big thing is I'm not a biggest fan of cliffhangers, and basically all of Star Wars is cliffhangers. If you think about the movies, because they're always gonna sort of kind of transition into the last one. So everything Jared said about the fact that it has super cool battle, super cool blowing up of the Death Star and all that crazy shit that goes down, and kind of like a nice little packaging up and tying of loose ends and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of a feel good movie with all that stuff that happened in episode 4 and 5. So
with ending really on the dark note, that was Empire.
Right. But either way, I think that for a movie that came out in 1970s, I think.
No, Return of the Jedi was in the 80s.
Okay, well, yeah, 80s, before my time. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I think a lot of people agree that it's withstood the test of time, and I think that people really hold it to a really high regard. And I think the fact that it kind of put a end to one of the greatest trilogies of all time was always a big exclamation point. I think they did a very good job of it as well. So kudos for not screwing it up, because that would have been bad. But they did an excellent job. It's my number 4, and that's the reason why. And on top of everything you said as well. So didn't want to repeat myself or yourself.
Yeah, no worries. Johnny, give us your number 4.
My number 4 is A New Hope, the one that started it all. Like I were talking before, after I saw Spaceballs, I saw that movie for the first time, and I just remember thoroughly just enjoying what I was watching. I was like into it, right? And this was me at like 8 years old, and when I started rewatching these movies leading prior up to the new trilogy, I still remember having that same feeling of joy watching it. It's just fun to watch. It's a very simple hero's journey. You get introduced to like Han Solo, which seeing him at the first time in the cantina with Chewbacca was really a great moment to see, right? And it's funny because I watched the THX version first, so I didn't realize that like some of the things that Lucas put in the background was after, not so much the original, right? So when he sees Jabba the Hutt, I didn't realize half that stuff wasn't there before, but it kind of just lends and builds. And like I said, who doesn't, when watching this movie, imagine themselves as Luke, taking, the eye scope off and then just nailing it with their eye and be like, I'm going to hit this shot.
Use the Force, Luke. Let go, Luke.
Bam. That's just stuff that, feels very good. And that's why Star Tours still works to this day, going to that ride because of that movie and how it resonates.
You know what was funny was I never envisioned myself as Han Solo because I was never that cool. I never thought I could be as fucking cool as Han Solo because you can't. Sorry, when you're playing Star Wars with your friends as little kids, pew pew pew. I was never like, no, you're not fucking Han Solo. No one's Han Solo. He's way too fucking cool.
And just the way Harrison Ford played him, and it did, and it helped a lot that he was Indiana Jones too. So now having these two cool guys just going at one another, like Harrison Ford, just when we talk about roles that are synonymous with the actor, Harrison Ford is very synonymous with Han Solo. Like, and that's why Alden, whatever his name is in Solo, it was a really hard, tall order for him to try to at least be as good as what Harrison Ford was.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also think he got kind of a raw deal when it leaked that he had an acting coach show up and help him. I think he had a lot of decks stacked against him. And I think Solo is a character who would benefit from a series like The Mandalorian. I think if you give us a weekly series of him doing his capers, smuggling and that kind of stuff, that's where you were going to get your money, your enjoyment, not some really tight, has to be this fucking Ron Howard as your director. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, it was that would lend itself to something as a miniseries simply because then you can kind of explore more. It's like we're trying to fit his life within an hour and a half, right? And it's like, how are we going to do that? The only, like I said, I mean, before we go into our top three, you guys like Solo more than I do because I think Solo is the second worst movie in this Star Wars canon.
Oh, man.
Like, to me,
Woof.
the only thing they got right was Donald Glover. That's the only thing they got right with that movie. Yeah, because him as Lando is pitch perfect. Like, he exudes it a lot. I still don't know if Emilia Clarke can act outside of Daenerys. I have no idea. Like, I'm still trying to figure that out to this day, watching some of her other movies. I mean, I like Willie Harrelson. It felt very paint by numbers. If I was reading Spark Notes about Solo, this is what the movie is, and I did not sign up for that. Like, I just did not. Like,
okay.
I like how you wanted to see what Edgar Wright's vision of Ant-Man is. I really wanted to see what the Lego directors would have done with this movie.
Yeah. Totally. I think that's absolutely fair. I think having Han Solo be a little more comedic and a little bit more kind of loosey-goosey that reports were that they were doing would have been a much better movie.
What, just out of curiosity, what is, if Solo was the second worst, what's the worst?
Attack of the Clones, man. That's the worst one.
So you're saying Solo is worse than like the Clone Wars, like the animated film?
Oh, the animated film was fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. Because the series was great, man. I don't know if you've seen it. The Clone Wars series was very good.
Specifically the movie that came in like 2008 or 2009 or something.
That was fine. It wasn't
okay. But crazy. Solo was below fine, is what you're telling me.
To me, Solo, when we talk about if I, there's bad movies in a universe and there's just bad movies. And to me, Solo is just a bad movie. I had no enjoyment in that movie.
All right.
Johnny, I think Rise of the Skywalker is worse.
That's what I was going to say. I think it was.
I think it's worse than Attack of the Clones. I think it might be. I'm like thinking about it.
I still think Attack of the Clones is worse, but Rise of Skywalker is pretty bad.
Fucking Rise of Skywalker has a segment in the opening where they're jumping to light speed in atmosphere with planets. What? That's not how that works. And then
that was pretty cool.
And then you have her like doing force lightning and blowing Chewbacca up, which she didn't. And I'm just like, wait, the 45 minutes into the movie, I sat up, I looked at my phone in the theater and went, what are we doing here, guys?
I think
they don't show Kerry Russell's face.
I think the biggest problem for me personally as a casual viewer is more the fact that it felt like you know how if you're writing, like like words on a sign and you started running out of space because you didn't properly plan ahead and you
Oh
fucked
my
up.
god. Yeah, thank you. It's
Yeah.
it's like that kind of like
Yeah,
curve.
yeah, you write smaller and you write curved. It's almost like on this one they're like, wait, we should have spent more time developing other characters or adding shit or whatever in the first
Joe,
two.
that's my
That they,
single favorite anecdote or thing you've said on this podcast so far.
yeah, it was just like I was watching
Because
it too, and just as a casual viewer, if a casual viewer can feel this way, like the more fanatic people will feel way worse. So
I
it's
sat
just,
up,
yeah, it was
I
terrible.
I was like, have I ever been? What am I feeling? Am I bored? What is this? And it's no shit because I've only seen that movie once. When they started like pulling out things of like them shitting on the Last Jedi part, I was like, get the fuck out of here. Like that movie is a tough look for JJ. When
I
I love JJ Abrams.
Yeah, I
That
mean, I
movie's a
just
tough
watched it.
look for him.
I just watched it because it's the end of a series, and
Yeah.
I have to watch it just so I say I can watch it. Would I ever watch it again? Ever? Maybe. I mean, I'll
Yeah,
watch it.
I mean, I'll probably watch it again at some point.
Yeah. So I at least when I'm going in, my expectations will be really low. I'm thinking, okay,
You know what the best part of that movie was when I went to go see it? It was
No.
because I saw it in IMAX. So they showed
Oh,
me the
okay.
first 5 minutes of Tenet. That was the best part of that experience. The opening scene of Tenet, that's what they showed. And I'm all like,
Johnny, are we gonna have Tenant cast?
yeah, we're going to. Man.
Okay. We're gonna. Okay.
I think Joe enjoys that movie,
I'm
but
into it.
I love that movie, and I just remember, I literally remember walking out the theater after seeing Rise of Skywalker. I'm all like, they should have just showed fucking Tenet. I should have just watched Tenet, but I only got the first 10 minutes. I gotta wait
was
6 months until this movie comes out.
okay. Yeah, it
And
wasn't
then
out. Yeah.
happened, right? So,
That's
so
it was some crazy ass shit. I mean, Tenet
All
was
right.
it's kind of mind boggling a little bit. But go ahead.
I'm looking forward to Tenant cast. You tell me when, and I'll be there for it. Anyway, my number 3. I've been sitting here looking at my number 3 and my number 2, and I've been going like back and forth this whole podcast so far, kind of being like, "Fuck, which one do I choose? Which one do I choose?" And man, this one's a tough one for me. I think, like I said, on any given day they'll switch. I think it's Rogue One. It's Rogue One. It
Damn.
was going to be my number 2. On certain days I would even say it's my number 1 when I really think about it. I think Rogue One is so great because it gets in, gets out, and does its thing. I think Diego Luna is fantastic in it. I think there's so many memorable scenes, the way it's shot. Gosh, like Gareth Edwards did such a good job on that movie. Didn't it feel like a Star Wars movie from the original series?
yes,
It felt gritty and grimy, and it lived in. That's what it felt like. It felt lived in like a Star Wars movie should. When they're looking for Saul Guerrero, and they're in the streets. They have that fight with the stormtroopers, and it's just all the dust is everywhere. It's gross. It's and Donnie Yen is there. It had the mystery. It had the mystique of the old Star Wars. It had the grime of the old Star Wars, and it had a great space battle and a land battle. Like Mads Mikkelsen was great in it. I absolutely love this movie. To me, if they just did movies like this, they did like little one-offs every once in a while. Like I hope Rogue Squadron's is good, I don't want it to be a series. Just give me fucking Rogue Squadron. Stop trying to plan ahead. Give me Rogue Squadron, make it good, and we're there. I really think that this brought it back to its roots of being a true Star Wars movie. Joe, you're up. Number 3.
My number 3 is gonna be The Force Awakens.
Okay, cool.
The reason I like this is because I think that after watching, I don't know how long it's been since episode 3. I don't know what the hiatus is there,
Oh, it
but
was a while.
long time, like more
I
than a
mean, yeah,
decade, right?
because episode 3 came out when we were juniors or seniors in high school. So it's
Seniors.
04, so 05.
05 and
Right.
Force Awakens was 15, so 10 years.
10 years. So
10
I
and a
think
half years.
that, yeah, I think that with all the advancements in technology and all that, and advancements in cinematography, and I think that with J.J. Abrams, I guess, being in the helm of it, that's quite interesting as well. Just his take on it. And, everyone, you get all these trailers and stuff that make it really cool. And I think that it is sort of at the time, like it really stuck to its roots a little bit, really kind of advanced the stories in a good way. With all its anticipation, personally, I think that it was impossible to meet certain expectations just because I think that making a whole new trilogy off of the last two, people were probably expecting heaven and earth sort of thing. But I think it did well for what it did, and I think that I very much enjoyed the whole movie as well. I think that the introduction of all these characters. Now, looking back, when we consider the last of the series, and how they paced everything it wasn't good. Like Rise of how when we look at how Rise of Skywalker ended, we can look back saying we should have probably done some more stuff on Force Awakens. But that being said, if we're looking strictly at Force Awakens, the movie itself, I think the pacing was great. I think the story was great. I think that Daisy Ridley did a good job, and I think a lot of people liked it. I think a lot of people, myself included, very much like Adam Driver's idea of a very interesting antagonist, very kind of like a disturbed child sort of thing, as a villain. And I think that he plays the role well as someone who is the main antagonist of this film of this franchise. And so I was all for it. I think that John Boyega being in it, I personally think that overall, looking back, I feel like John Boyega's character could have been fleshed out a lot more.
Yeah, they could have had the romance between him and Finn.
Exactly. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know if that was sort of a thing that, I mean, they had 3 directors, right, for all 3 movies. Maybe it got lost in the work somehow, but I was really hoping that, because John Boyega for me was like kind of like the hook for this. Like he was like
Mhm.
the stormtrooper that kind of went off. I'm like, really cool, awesome. He's the one that's going to
Yeah,
do all this stuff.
he had a really good story in the beginning.
Yeah, it's a unique story, and I very much liked it. And so,
Okay, stay calm, stay calm. I am calm. I'm talking to myself.
I was a little bit disappointed that wasn't as fleshed out as it should be. And my assumption at the time, and looking again just just by the movie itself, oh, okay, they're gonna totally flesh out the rest of it in the next 2 movies or whatever. So that was my assumption. So I kind of let it go. But overall, the main overarching storyline, and all the people in it and all the actors in it and all the all that kind of stuff was great for me. I enjoyed it thoroughly all the way from start to finish, and that makes it what is that's why it's my number 3.
Mhm. It was really fun. I remember seeing it for the first time, and
Super fun,
getting goosebumps and being like, "Holy shit!"
right? Yeah, exactly. That's just how I felt as well.
All right, your turn, Johnny. Your number 3.
I agree with Jared. Number 3 is Rogue One. Rogue One does a lot of things right. One of them actually is Alan Tudyk as K2SO.
I am taking them to imprison them in prison.
He is taking us to
Quiet!
Up until this point,
good.
I didn't feel shit for any of the androids that were in this universe, any of the robots. This is the first one where I'm like, oh man, like how are you making me feel emotionally towards you, right? So that was always a good start. I like the building of misfit team together, and it kind of paced itself along pretty well. The minute they got to Scarif, you guys from that point on till the end of the movie, it was nonstop tension, action, release, and you were on it for the whole ride. If anyone says that they were bored during this time, they actually don't enjoy films in general, bar none, because everything that happens up to that point was just great action, and the score by Michael Giacchino, it works so well on top of that. Also, this is one of the few times in this modern age, towards the end of that movie, we saw what kind of fucking badass Darth Vader is. Like it was funny because I read some of the interviews, post interviews, and Gareth Edwards is like, I really want to add this scene in simply because, it kind of connects to the timeline. But, we've never really seen Darth Vader in his prime going balls to the wall. And we saw that, and and you thought the movie was gonna end before because oh, they got the plan, we're good. They kind of escaped with it. But the fact that Darth Vader was on their ass and they were destroying everything, it not only just shows how great Darth Vader is as a villain, but at the same time, it shows kind of in terms of the overall story, how much sacrifice everyone there made to make sure that they got the plans out. So all of that encompassing, Rogue One is such a great movie, and it is in my number 3.
Great call. Yeah. That's a great point about Darth Vader at the end, just absolutely tearing those dudes up. I love the seamless transition into New Hope. God, Alan Tudyk is so funny. Whatever he's in, I just love whatever he's in. Man, I want to watch that movie now. My number 2 favorite Star Wars movie is The Last Jedi. Come at me, motherfuckers. I will ride for this movie till the day I die. It is absolutely fantastic. Sure, there are some dumb things about it. It's a fucking Star Wars movie. Of course there's dumb things about it. The Holdo maneuver was really dumb. I won't deny that. Space Monaco probably could have been edited down to about 10 minutes. Those are my only criticisms about that movie. I think Luke Skywalker has an vastly more interesting story in this movie than he had in the whole prequel series, or not prequel series, the sequel series. He had when he was talking about mentoring Ben and it going wrong. Of course he's going to retreat. He's not going to want to unleash that on the world, on the galaxy. He was so good as the hermit. Everything about that movie, the look, do people forget about how visually beautiful that movie is? The fight in the throne room where they're fighting the Red Guard guys. Oh my fucking God. When he grabs, it was Adam Driver. He flicks on, was it Adam Driver or was it her? He flicks on the lightsaber and flicks it off real quick. Just through that dude's head. Oh my goodness. I've never seen a more beautiful Star Wars movie with more beautiful shots and everything like that. I think it's a great movie. It's a great addition. And if you didn't like it because of whatever, because Rey or whatever, feminism, fuck you. You are the reason why we got a shitty Rise of the Skywalker. You are the reason why they're going to fuck with these movies even more now. The worst thing that the studio did was bend to these people's will. It's not their property. It is not their property. If they don't like it, fine. But you know what? When you're sending threats to the cast, when you're saying misogynist shit, get out of here with that. Absolutely insane. It made me feel embarrassed to be a fan of this series. I have to be a qualifier and be like, no, I fucking love Last Jedi. Get out of here. Rian Johnson absolutely killed it. I can't wait for him to have his series if they still let him follow through with that. This is why I don't like Kathleen Kennedy, because she kind of went back and screwed The Last Jedi with Rise of the Skywalker. Love, love, love The Last Jedi. Oh, and another thing. My last thing. People complain, oh, this new Star Wars, force powers. Every single movie has had new force powers. Say it with me now. In A New Hope, he doesn't have force push or force pull or anything like that. Then they did it in Empire Strikes Back. Then they had new ones in Return of the Jedi. Every single movie it updates. You guys, stop being shitty because you don't like something. Stop being shitty to women. Stop being shitty in general online. Joe, you're number 2.
I'm a little worried that our lists are going to be identical.
Hell yeah, brother.
Number 2 was Last Jedi.
Fuck yeah.
The problem with following you is I could just stop with I agree and then move on.
No, I
I
want
guess.
you. So tell me about, when did you see Last Jedi?
Oh God, dude, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and say dental school made my brain a little mushy.
Totally. Yeah.
I I definitely watched it in theaters. That's all I could tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember when it came out because I think the entire trilogy in my brain was all a blur. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely remember watching Rogue One separately. I definitely remember watching Solo separately, but that's really about it. Other than that, I just remember that this movie was good. The movie following this one was shit. So that's all I got. But I do remember watching it in theaters, which is always a big plus for me because I like Johnny. I love the theaters. I love the whole atmosphere and all that. But I guess on top of what you said, what I can say from a more casual viewer's perspective of Last Jedi is, I think again everything that was put together for this movie was put together well. I think that a lot of people may had some reservations about having J.J. Abrams do it, but he did a great job. I mean, I think there's really no way else to put it. Now, I think that the only people that may say otherwise are people who might be the biggest fan of the trilogy in the 70s and 80s, which they have arguments there. But I think the development of the characters, they did a very good job here. Now, there are, again, like you said, there are some parts where they could have shortened it out or cut it out or maybe extended. I don't know.
I
Um,
think so. When you bring up those fans of the 70s and 80s, oh, this isn't my Star Wars. No
right,
shit, motherfucker. Things
right,
change, things evolve, stories change. That is the point. The best part of that movie is they made Rey not a Skywalker. That's the best part of that movie. She was not involved with that family. George Lucas said it from the very beginning. Anybody could be a Jedi.
right. I'm with you 100%.
And that visual at the end of that little kid doing the force thing with that broomstick and
And it,
looking up at the stars,
so that anyone
I
could be the most.
get chills.
So here's a question, but she's a Palpatine?
No, that they made that shit up. Get the fuck out of here.
You know what I mean? Like I think that the concept of anyone could be a Jedi is excellent. I think that they did a good job here of doing that exact thing. I think the third movie ruined it.
Absolutely, 100%. And when I say
So
get the fuck out of here, that wasn't to you, Joe. That was to the people
yeah,
who.
so it was just like I wish they continued this idea
Mm-hmm,
of that anyone could be a Jedi, which makes sense because it's pretty universal. That's kind
mm-hmm.
of a universal baseline that everyone goes with, and I think it really the idea of like, oh, any random kid from the middle of bumfuck nowhere could be the savior of the world, right? Because
They don't even have to be savior of the world. They could just be you could be better than your origins don't define you. is
sure,
is the heart of Star Wars.
sure, yeah, I can
Not
dig that as
because
well.
you're part of this family that's important. Blah, blah. Your origins don't define you.
Yeah, I can do that as well. So I think just the fact that they stayed consistent with that
Yeah.
was a big deal for me as well. I think that they didn't overstep their bounds in terms of that kind of thing. Now that being said, kind of off topic. If they took this Last Jedi idea and then they extended it to the third film, where they effectively the Rise of Skywalker was kind of just weird, you know, I I'm curious to know what they could have done. Like I don't know. I don't remember how long this movie was. The
This
Rise of
movie was pretty
Skywalker.
long. That's
Right.
like one of my things. Space Monaco, that was a little long for me.
Right.
It got a little long in the tooth. I think they could have edited a lot out.
I mean,
I
but yeah.
do
Oh, go
I,
ahead.
I think the third movie, if it's my movies, I don't kill Snoke in the second one. I
Okay.
think you need to either flesh him out better and have that not be the real Snoke, or have him survive and just be the big bad of the third one. There's no
Okay.
reason why you needed to bring Palpatine in other than like, oh, and guys, if you remember, you remember in the crawl in the third of Rise of Skywalker? It was like, oh, a message from Palpatine. Do you know where they put that message out only? It wasn't on a trailer. It wasn't on YouTube. It was in fucking Fortnite.
Hmm.
they had it like broadcast on Fortnite. I'm like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, I get it. You want the kids to come in and everything like that, but good Lord, I'm a 33-year-old man at this. No, was I even 30? No, I was 30 at that time.
Yeah.
I'm not like, come on, please.
You know, you got to talk to the Disney PR department there. I mean, I'm not in charge of that, but
no, I know.
I
Fuck
mean,
you, Joe. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, either way, I think that being said, I was always a little bit concerned when Disney bought out everything, because we were talking before about how we had a Marvel thing about, you know, they have the 10-year plan, Disney has their 10-year plan, or the Star Wars has a 10-year plan. They're both owned by Disney though, so I sort of forget that sometimes. It's a conglomerate, huge conglomerate. So, anyways, back to this. Yeah, again, just everything. I'm gonna sort of parrot everything you said. I agree with pretty much 99% of what you said. As a casual viewer, I very much enjoyed it. I never thought it was too long. I thought it was very exciting to watch, and it captured my interest all the way through, and that's why it's my number 2.
Awesome.
Johnny, you're up.
Johnny, you up?
My favorite quote of my number 2 film: "The Empire, your parents, the Resistance, the Sith, the Jedi. Let the past die. Kill it if you have to. That's the only way to become what you're meant to be." This movie, The Last Jedi, should have been more revered. This is the one time where Joe likes to talk about critics' ratings and user ratings, and usually how he sides more with the users. Fuck the users. They didn't know shit. This is because they obviously did not want this movie because they're butthurt about Luke Skywalker not being what they want to be. I have a very big problem. I love Cinema Sins. Don't get me wrong. They're very fun to watch. The problem I have with Cinema Sins and the people interpret it is that plot means everything to them. I hate that shit because they're like, oh, you know, this plot device doesn't make sense, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's a movie. Like, if we are really going to strip bear down to rate movies based off plot, your two guys' favorite movies of the past decade, Mad Max Fury Road, would be, it's a movie about a U-turn. That's what the movie is, right? Right? That's all it is. But there's a lot of elements that come into the movie. Sometimes the plot can be simplistic as it wants to be, but it's what you do within it, enriching the characters. Rey, the best thing that movie could have done, and what Rian Johnson realized, is that you don't have to be a Skywalker to be a fucking hero, right? I love what Luke's arc turn does. I mean, I cannot be the only person that, even though Holder, dumb, right? The whole maneuver set type of thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that scene where that ship went through Snoke's ship, my God.
Like I said, the visuals, that was my background on my computer for a long time because it looks so fucking cool.
Visually stunning. And the fact that Rian Johnson decided, no music, cut that shit out, and just let it happen as that, the weight of that moment, it's so damn fantastic. This movie was a Star Wars movie that tried to do more, and people didn't accept it because they wanted tried and true, and it really bugged me because one of the best things that he introduced was Kylo and Rey talking to each other. Their force, being, and I was like, that was actually pretty cool. I love the fact that John Boyega's character Finn was force sensitive. Like you're seeing things that, and then, the kid at the end is a little bit cheesy, but I get it though. But that's what the cap is, that like anyone can actually inherit or have a force with them. And
I will. It is my opinion that movie is the most Star Wars movie of the trilogy.
Yeah, and what I hate the most is that people were trying to say that Rian Johnson was trolling this franchise. I'm like, no, he used every trope that you would see in a Star Wars movie, and he flipped it on us, and that's what made it so good. Like, he used we were expecting Luke to get the lightsaber and be like, all right, I'm going to get on this ship and we're going to just go find Kylo and Snoke. Nah, dog. He threw it away because there's things that happen, right? Like, it was comedic, but it was kind of symbolic of what Luke was kind of going through and why he wanted to be alone and why he was on the planet by himself, right? And I'll come back to, what Joe was saying about like where they could have been. I actually love the fact that they killed Snoke into like,
Interesting. Okay.
right. The reason why I like it is because if they would have followed through, then really you're having Kylo as the big baddie
I
at the
think
end.
that
And I think that would have been
Mhm.
great to kind
Totally.
of go through because then the arc is that Kylo has a lot of bad in him, but he knows what the Force is. He's just kind of traumatized. And the other side is that she has a lot of good in her, but she embraces a lot of what the dark side is telling her. And they are a perfect mismatch. And when he said that quote, and that the reason what sums up that movie is that not only was he trying to tell, you know, Ray, like, we should embrace our destinies. This is kind of what it is. We should change with the new. Literally, Ryan Johnson was telling the whole audience, let's do this. Let's change because we can do this and it can work. And most of the audience, I won't say most of the audience, most of hardcore Star Wars fans decided, hell no. And that's why, like Joe said, we had Rise of the Skywalker, which is let's not think about the second movie and just completely jump from 1 to 3, which never made any sense. Now you're just overloading on fan service when, they thought they deserved the fan service when I'm like, it's not earned. None of that shit is earned. Fan service works when it's earned. And there's
all the Marvel movies.
Yes. When you do it, it's earned, and that's why people pop. There's a reason why people were freaking out when Cap
Avengers Assemble.
So yeah, saying that Cap saying Avengers Assemble when Cap finally got the hammer, Mjolnir, right? So like those moments are earned because there was they took their time, they invested in, they talked about characters, and I guarantee you, Ryan Johnson probably had a really good third movie, or even Colin Trevorrow, which was supposed to do the third movie, probably had a good idea of what the third movie is coming from Ryan Johnson. It's just that, like I said, Disney was panicking. I don't know why they were panicking because
the
people
reaction of these neckbeard fans that can't handle a woman in the lead, that can't handle things changing from their youth. It was the boomers' fault.
It was, and it's like it just bugs me. Also, last but not least, like you like the scene in when they're fighting the Knights of Ren, right? That was a really cool scene. I actually absolutely loved the ending scene with Kylo and Luke Skywalker. Like that shit. So good. That was so good. Like I was like, because then everyone was all like, "Oh, this is the Luke we've been waiting for." I'm like, yeah. But you guys didn't want to take the journey with him to get to this point. This is kind of how he had to do. That's why it was more rewarding to watch what he did towards the end, right? So we're in full agreement. Last Jedi is by far, if it wasn't for number one, this would be my number one Star Wars movie. But
yeah, totally,
it is
it's
by far
to me in a modern Star Wars movie.
To me, I know 2 and 3 for you is close, but to me, like even though I love Rogue One, to me this is where there's a gap between Last Jedi and Rogue One, because even though Rogue One to me is a very well told story, like Last Jedi was trying to do something new, and to me it worked on all cylinders.
Johnny, you bring up so many good points. Much like those were all swirling around in my head. I just couldn't say it as well as you did. I'm gonna move on because I don't have anything else to add. I will say that my top 3 are interchangeable at any point. Like I think a couple months ago I said Rogue One was my favorite. I just don't, my number 1, I think this might be across the board, is Empire Strikes Back. The actual like the guts that Lucas had to end on that bummer ass note of the good guys being defeated, of everything being just an absolute bummer, was amazing. It could be the greatest reveal in cinema history is I am your father. I just think about Hoth, man. Hoth is friggin' sweet. Like that ice. Like I when I was a kid, I hated that movie because I found it boring. Oh, it doesn't have this. Oh, it doesn't have that. As I got older, I was like, oh my goodness, this movie is an absolute masterpiece. It it is Star Wars for me, and I feel it really has some kind of connection, being the second movie in a trilogy with The Last Jedi. There's similar themes there. There's similar themes of darkness there. It's just so good. It's my favorite, and I think it's a lot of people's favorite. I think that the Vader fight in Cloud City is amazing with Luke in the end. I think the creature work again, I just fucking AT-ATs so cool. Like I'm just spouting things out again. I don't know if I could be more eloquent about it. It's just really cool and fun, and I just love this movie so much. Joe, take it from me. You're number one.
Gonna go ahead and assume all three of us are the same.
I don't know. Johnny could be a wild card here. He could Bagger Vance us.
Cool, man. I mean, look, yeah, I'm not gonna judge him if he does that shit. But no, again, I think I think a lot of people with Empire, with "I am your father," sort of thing, and it's so quotable, and the fact that it has such, um, I'll I'll try to say stuff that maybe you haven't mentioned, but just the fact that it's so culturally ingrained in other types of social media and other movies and other films. People reference it and all that kind of stuff. The love story is quite crazy. It's the twists and the storyline and visually it's incredible to watch. Again, it's iconic. It's iconic. And there's I think I can't really rack my brain right now, but I mean there can't be that many movies that are this iconic that kind of stands the test of time. Maybe the first Matrix movie or something that kind of defined what that kind of genre would be. But in terms of space sci-fi, man, this is it. I think a lot of people when they try to compare something, this is like kind of like the bar that they look at and kind of like just see whether or not it's good or not, really. But
I really think this is when it became a space opera.
oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I just I loved everything about it. It kept me enthralled all the way through. I think that it's something that I'll always remember for the rest of my life. I think that I don't know. Cinematography was really really amazing to watch. Story was very enthralling. Whoever just I wish that they can capture this lightning in a bottle in some way, and because in the next 7 years or so, I'm sure there's another trilogy that comes out. If they can do a fraction of what this movie did, it'll be considered a success. So I would say that hey, you have your blueprint here. Try your best to do something like this without copying it, I guess. And I don't know, man. It's a great movie. I don't know what else to say. It's I'm sure that I'm gonna go ahead and guess that Johnny can continue it. That's all I gotta say. I don't really have that much to contribute relative to you guys. So
Johnny,
as a casual viewer, 10 out of 10.
One of the best sequels that is ever made, and it still holds kind of like the test of time. The title itself, everyone calls it Empire, right? But if you read the whole title again, it's Empire Strikes Back. We should have known what was actually going to happen within this movie, and the Empire does strike back with force within this movie, like Jared talked about before. Everyone ends up losing, which was a really crazy direction that this movie kind of came into, especially with the way the first movie was about A New Hope. It was bright. It was a lot of optimism that happens, and here it kind of flips it on its head. We cement our main characters as people that we want. We talk about how Han Solo is very cool in the original trilogy. We see kind of the humanity in him. I mean, when he gets frozen, right? And Leia tells him he loves you. And what does Han Solo say back?
I know.
I know, right? So
just a fucking
it's such an even till this day, we know what he means, but he just doesn't have the heart himself to kind of push over the line and say, to be out of character. We are introduced in the first movie Obi-Wan as a starting mentor, but he didn't really fully teach Luke a lot of the stuff. we got Yoda in this one. And Yoda, my God, the puppet work on this, right? It works so well. Like even for 1980 and rewatching it now, yes, you can tell this puppet works in, but it's something about it feels very, we talked about lived in, but it felt real, and we can kind of see the train that goes on, and he can be a wisecrack, but then he's talking and with wisdom behind him to try to get Luke to go over it. And the crazy thing about Luke, and what I absolutely love what they did with Luke, is that we at some point feel like we know everything we know. We're gonna go in and we're gonna kill it because there's not much more that we need to do. And there's a certain lack of fear in a young person that does that. And Darth Vader decided, nah, dog, you're not ready for this. And it kind of scares him. And Yoda even warned him, like, you will be scared. Like, you don't know it yet. It's gonna happen. And it kind of goes through. And like I said, the reveal, I just remember in Pitch Perfect how, which is funny because Anna Kendrick's character just brought up like, oh yeah, it's his father, because if you were German you would have known that. And I'm all like, yeah, but I'm not. There's no way, right? And sometimes those sort of reviews are kind of great. Billy D. Williams as Lando, excellent, right? We get introduced to a lot of new characters and they stick with us as we go. We see Boba Fett again, right, during this time, and there's not a lot more that I can say that tells you that like A New Hope was really good, great, but somehow this movie eclipsed it tenfold. Like, and it's hard, right, when you're making great work and you got another movie that decided to say, hey, I'm gonna build on what you do, make it even better, and flip it on everybody. Because like I said, that's why Last Jedi is very reminiscent of what Empire Strikes Back is because they took everything what came from the first movie and flipped it on its head and really made us use those kind of positive emotions against us throughout this whole movie, even till the very end. Like at the end, they're looking out in the vastest space, and you think that there's some hopefulness to it because they really believe that, they're all together and we can do this. But at the same time, in the back of your head, I'm all like, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
the Empire just spanked you guys, like legit. Like, they're making you retreat. You're not going forward. Like, you're backing up at this point. And so, for all those, Empire Strikes Back is my number one.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty consistent consensus. I think that's going to be like that for all of the Star Wars fans of our age. The younger ones, it's really interesting. They are more forgiving of the prequels than we ever were. Going back, I think they're fun, but I don't think they're very good. There's spots in them, but it's really interesting to see the young people's opinions on them.
Yeah, I've talked to people in their like 20s that like really enjoy the prequels, and I think at least a disconnect with me is that they overlook the acting, and I'm all like, how do you do that? like to me, like they see all the cool things. And don't get me wrong, like I still have fond memories of the pod race in Phantom Menace. Like, Darth Maul should have been doing more than just getting destroyed at the end of that movie, right? That could have been something that would have been lived long a little bit more. But my biggest thing has always been that like George Lucas, I get what he was doing. He is not great at directing people, right? That's why Ewan McGregor somehow transcended all that shit.
Well, they were also acting in front of a fucking green canvas.
Yeah, and I think if you had a more capable director, it would have been better, right? Because yes, now that everyone works with green screen, they kind of get it, and their imagination kind of tends to be a little bit better. But back then, when it's like first used, things like that, you needed a more empathetic director to do that, and George Lucas is not that type of guy. He is let's read your lines because I got more visual shit to do to make sure I build this whole universe that I have here.
That sounds like it's going to be it for our conversation. Why don't we get some plugs in here, Joe? Plug man.
I should really make like Instagram or Facebook thing for this, but it's always the. It's okay. It's okay, guys. We are at we have Facebook and we have Instagram, Twitter and Instagram. Sorry, Twitter and Instagram. Film lovers GTTG. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear if your top 5 for Star Wars is different from ours. And that's okay. You know, different people, different opinions, different ages, and it's all good. So let us know if you agree with us. Let us know if you disagree with us, and we'd love to hear all that. So,
Johnny, where you at?
You guys can find me at JNO11, JNGO11. From there, I just talk about politics, sports, whatever is on my mind. Usually politics, because Republicans do dumb shit sometimes, and people need to know about that dumb shit. But, you know, once in a while, you'll get to hear me talk about wrestling, which I have a very, you know, we can talk offline about the new episode of Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah, dog.
Which, by the way, like usually I say I watch more movies than series, but if you're into wrestling and you haven't watched Dark Side of the Ring,
I would say
one thing you should watch.
I would say even if you're not into wrestling, it's a fantastic documentary.
It is. Vice usually does documentaries pretty well, so if you're just liking documentaries and just learning something in general, they're starting. This is season 3, I believe. Mm-hmm. So the first 2 seasons are great, so go check those out.
And you can reach me at JLUTHY on Twitter, JLuthy. And I just made a Gmail account for this podcast. We are at filmloverspod@gmail.com. That's filmloverspod@gmail.com. Send us your questions, queries,
or topics to talk about, I guess.
Topics to talk about, topics that you want to hear, anything like that. We are game. That is filmloverspod@gmail.com. Galaxy Brains, it was nice talking to you. Have a nice week.
Deuces.